Alright guys, we're back with another lesson here. This is what we need to do. Product of powers with negative exponents. This will be our number 4. And what we want to do is on our yellow sheet there, whenever you get a chance, we want to put it on number 4. This one right here is going to be called product of exponents with product of powers with negative exponents. So make sure you write that in your organizer, so that you have that ready to go, so you know that's what you need to look for in case you need help on doing these. So this is number 4 for us. Okay, so we'll do this one here pretty quickly and run through this one real quick. We've already talked about product of powers and what to do and what the rule with that is. The rule, remember, when we do product of powers is that we add our exponents. But what happens when we add them and we get a negative exponent? This kind of goes back and forth with number 3 and number 2 working back and forth, just so that you can kind of see how they work, so that we know that when we have product of powers we add them, and then if we have a negative exponent we got to take the reciprocal. So we have our organizer here set up kind of to help us with this. So if we go through the first one here, you have 3 squared times 3 to the negative first power. Well, if I take my exponents, which my exponents are going to be the 2 and the negative 1 up there in the top, I'm going to take those two and do what my organizer says, and I'm going to add those together. When I add 2 plus a negative 1, I can put that right here, 2 plus negative 1. You can see it gives me 1. So I know I have 3 to the first power. So now I got to go to my next step is, do I need to take the reciprocal? Well, I look at it here, my exponent is a positive, so I don't have to take a reciprocal of that one. When I expand it out, it's saying 3 to the first power, so that's telling me right here that I have 1 3, and the answer in standard form is also 3. So that one was pretty straightforward, just kind of a get you started here on this part. So this is basically kind of what we're doing. So let's take a look at the second one, and the second one may be a little bit different. I have a variable x raised to the negative 5th power and another variable x raised to the negative 2nd power, and I'm multiplying these. So when I take the product, or when I multiply these, I remember I'm going to add the exponents. So I'm going to do negative 5 plus negative 2, and that ends up giving me x to the negative 7th power. So when I added my exponents, the negative 5 and the negative 2, I get to the negative 7th power. But I now have a problem because I have a negative exponent, and I want to write it as a positive exponent because those are always nicer and neater to see. So I got to think about, what do I do if I have a negative exponent? Well, I take the reciprocal. That means to just flip it over. So I'm going to flip this over so it becomes 1 over x to the 7th power. And if I expand that out, well, I have 1 in my numerator, and I have 7 x's in my denominator. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now I'm done, because I can't get a standard form. I can't get an answer because I don't know what those x's are. So I just leave it as that. So this would be a correct answer, and that would be a correct answer. This would also be a correct answer with a negative exponent. But if they ask you to write it as a positive, remember you got to flip it over. And there it is, expanded out. And in this case, standard form, I can't have an answer for. Alright, so let's look at the next one. This is a negative 5 to the 8th power, and times negative 5 to the 4th power. So that's an 8 right here. And so remember, I'm looking at my exponents, not my bases. So my exponents there are 8 and negative 4. And I'm multiplying, so I'm going to add those together. And when I add 8 plus negative 4, I'm going to end up getting negative 5 to the 4th power. And now I think about it, well, do I need to take the reciprocal of this one? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I got a negative, but that's not a negative exponent. That's a negative base. I want my exponent. My exponent here has to be negative to take the reciprocal. And since it's a positive, I'm not taking that reciprocal. I'm going to leave it as it is because it's fine the way it is. If I expand it out, if I have to expand it out, I have 4 negative 5s because the exponent says I've got 4 of them, and I have 4 negative 5s. And then to get it in standard form, I can just multiply that or put it in my calculator. Here it is. I can do it two ways: negative 5 times negative 5 times negative 5 times negative 5. Or I can do parentheses, negative 5, hit my caret button, which is right here, and then put a 4, and it gives me the same answer, 625. But notice how I put parentheses around that. If I did not put parentheses around it, it will give me a negative answer. But remember, I got to put the parentheses around it. So this answer here is 625. Because you know a negative and a negative is a positive, a negative and a negative is a positive, and two positives multiplied each other is a positive there. All right, let's try another one. 3 to the 4th power times 3 to the negative 8th power. Well, my exponents here are 4 and negative 8, and I'm multiplying, so I got to add them together. So since I'm going to add them together, I'm going to add 4 plus negative 8. You can put that right on your calculator. 4 plus, my negative button's right here, 8. I get negative 4. So I know my exponent is negative 4, so I have 3 to the negative 4th power. Now, I got to ask myself, well, I have a negative exponent, negative 4. I need to take the reciprocal because I'm going to write it as positive. So I just flip it over. So it becomes 1 over 3 to the 4th power. Now I can expand that out to 1 over 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 because I have 4 3's. And then I can just multiply this. 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. I can do it that way, 4 times. Or I can do 3 to the 4th power, and it gives me the same thing, 81. But remember, I got the 1 on top of in the numerator, so it becomes 1 to the 81st power. So it's actually a small, small, small number. Okay? All right, so if I look at my next example, we'll do the exact same things. Find my exponents. I have a variable a times negative 7. To the negative 7th power times a to the 3rd power. Well, what do I have here? I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to add my exponents. Negative 7 plus 3. When I do that, negative 7 plus 3, hit my negative button down there, 7 plus 3, you can see I've got negative 4. There's my negative button. So I have a to the negative 4th power. Now I don't like negative exponents, so I got to get rid of this negative exponent right there. And how do I do it? I make it positive by taking the reciprocal, and it flips over to 1 in the numerator now, a to the 4th power. Now I have 4 a's, so I can expand it out by going 1, 2, 3, 4, and now I'm done. I don't know what a is, so I don't have a standard form. So either this would be a good answer in positive form, that would be a good answer in positive form. This would also be an answer, but it would not be in positive form. But if I needed to clean it up, I could clean it up by doing the reciprocal. So here's another one. I have 1/2 to the negative 8th power and 1/2 to the 5th power. And I'm multiplying them. So I find my exponents. I have a negative 8 and a 5. And so all I'm going to do is the same thing again. My base here is 1/2. I'm going to add these together. Negative 8 plus a 5. That gives me a negative 3. Uh-oh. I got another negative now. I need to take care of that negative. I want to write it as positive. So to get that as positive, remember I take the reciprocal. I'm going to just flip it over. So when I flip this one over, the 2 now comes on top, and the 1 goes on the bottom. So now I end up getting 2 over 1 to the 3rd power. Or you could write that out as just simply 2 to the 3rd power. It's the same thing. Now how many 2's do I have? I have 3 of them. 2 times 2 times 2. I can now tell me what my standard form is as a number. I can do either 2 times 2 times 2 or 2 to the third power. Remember 2 caret 3. Oh, caret, where is that? 2 caret 3, and it gives me the same thing, 8. So I know my standard form answer is 8. Right there. I hate this pen. 8. Okay? Last little example, the same thing. I find my exponents. These are n to the 5th power times n to the negative 8th power. These are variables. I don't know what they are, but I can still do the rule by adding my exponents. So 5 plus a negative 8. When I do 5 plus a negative 8, it tells me n to the negative 3rd power. I can put that right in there. 5 plus, oops, get rid of that. 5 plus a negative 8. You see, it gives me negative 3. So there's my exponent as a negative 3. Ooh, now that's the correct answer, but let's write it as a positive. So I need to get this exponent negative 3 a positive, so all I do is I take the reciprocal. I flip him over. He becomes 1 to the n to the 3rd power. So he flips over. So remember, this is kind of like you got a 1 underneath it. And when you flip it over, we have a 1 on top in my numerator, and n goes down to the denominator, and the variable changes to positive. If I expand that out, it's now n times n times n, and I have no standard form because it's a variable. I don't know exactly what n is, so I just leave it as that. I can leave it as this answer, or that answer as positive, or I can leave it like this as negative. But I want you to be able to see how you can change them back and forth. Okay? I want you to be able to see them if they go back and forth. So there's what we kind of will do. You will get an organizer very similar to this to use for the bottom 4. But before we do the bottom 4, what is the rule that we come up with? So basically the rule says if the same blank and blank, the exponents, if a negative blank, take the blank and make the blank blank. Okay? Well, basically what it says there is what we want to do is if we had the same base, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to add the exponents. If we have the same base, just like we did here, we're going to add the exponents. Those are the big numbers. This is the big number. If it's a negative exponent, take the reciprocal. And make the exponent positive. So if you could be able just to follow that, so you would do the same rule. Add the exponents together. If you get a negative exponent, take the reciprocal of it, which means to flip it over. Make the exponent positive, and then you're good to go. Then you can expand it, solve for standard form, and go forth from there. So you have these 4 examples down here at the bottom that you can use using your organizer to see how you come up with. So you're going to use your organizer that has been given to you, be able to put those together and see how you can do with those exit slip check. Then there will be a quizzes, and the number will be provided for you so that you can be able to get some further practice on that as well, using your organizer, using that to show your work as you go forward. All right? Thank you very much. This was number 4. Make sure you have put that into your folder, into your notes, labeled your thing, and you'll be good to go. Thanks.